What's going on? I am Dominance, and this is...
Submission! And welcome to The Wrong Opinion, part of Audioholics Anonymous. This is the 50th take we've done of this video.
Yeah, I just hijacked him because I didn't want him to be Dominance.
Okay. So, we are doing Blue Oyster Cult, are we not?
Yes, my personal favorite band of the 70s.
The absolute
Possibly
worst,
the 80s, too.
the absolute worst band of all time.
Of course.
We're doing
of course,
them.
Of course.
All right, so, let's, should we just start off, with self-titled?
So before we do that, let me talk a little bit about the history of, the band and how they were formed. So a long time ago, you had a young Sandy Pearlman, which we'll get into what he eventually does for the band. But he's important because he wrote a series of poems known as the Soft Doctrines of Imaginos. And he founded this band, under the pretense that they would eventually adapt those poems into music. So this band was originally known as the Soft White Underbelly, which you can actually still find some of their songs. The group consisted of guitarist Buck Dharma, drummer Albert Bouchard, keyboardist Alan Lanier or whatever, and singers Jeff Cagle and Les Bronstein, as well as bassist Andrew Winters. Now, Sandy Pearlman was very important in the early days of the band because he got them signed to Elektra Records, and he also got gigs for the band. Soft White Underbelly eventually did end up recording an album's worth of material for Elektra Records, but the label basically just shelved it, and to this day, we've never been able to hear it because Bronstein, one of the singers, left. Eventually, Bronstein was replaced by Eric Bloom, who we now know is one of the lead singers and rhythm guitarist of the band. And the band did make another record as Soft White Underbelly, but once again, the label fucking shelved it. So, the fortunate aspect of this is that you can actually listen to this record because it was eventually released decades later.
I wish you could have told me that. That way I could have listened to it and had an opinion.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can do that after. I've actually never heard it myself. I don't know if it has any, similarities musically with Blue Oyster Cult, but I would imagine it does.
Yeah, so, is that everything as far as history goes?
No. So,
sorry.
basically, Soft White Underbelly changed their name because of a terrible review of one of their gigs. They were just like, oh, well, someone shit on us, so okay, let's just change our names. No one will know. So they changed their names 4 times, and eventually, in 1971, a historic date, the band decided to name themselves the Blue Oyster Cult. And after some lineup changes, some people left, and some people joined. We have a lineup of Buck Dharma on lead guitar and lead vocals, Eric Bloom on rhythm guitar and lead vocals, Albert Bouchard, who is the drummer and also lead vocals, Joe Bouchard, who is on bass, and I think he does sing a song or two on the debut. I can't remember. So occasional lead singer. Alan Lanier on keyboard, whoever only sung one Blue Oyster Cult song that we'll get to. It kind of sucks. And finally, we have Sandy Pearlman, who is the producer of the band's classic and black and white eras. And we are here at the debut album, Blue Oyster Cult. So do you want to talk about your thoughts on it first? Or
yeah, and I should say the way that we're doing this, we have a tier list, S, A, B, C, D, and then we will also count the live albums in a separate tier.
Yeah, but for some reason, D is before C on this tier list, so let me correct that real quick.
Okay. And while you do that, do you have a separate tab for me?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. While you do that, I will give my thoughts on the first Blue Oyster Cult album. So, when I first listened to this, because I obviously knew a little bit about Blue Oyster Cult and who they were, but I didn't have a lot of what can I say? I didn't have like a ton of experience. I wasn't like a huge fan like he was. So when I first heard it, my immediate thought, Eric Bloom and Eric Blachard cannot sing on this album. And for the first few albums, I might add, Eric Bloom sounds like a stoner. Like, he always has that, whoa, totally attitude in his voice, and it's really grating, in my opinion. It is really bluesy, which definitely works for some songs. I think like Cities on Flame rather, it really works. Last Days of May, Stairway to the Stars, Redeemed, and Cities on Flame with Rock and Roll are the standouts. Before the Kiss and a Recap kind of sucks in my opinion. I think that it's okay, but it's not necessarily memorable. I know it's a fan favorite, and I know I might be triggering some people, but see, we're doing this thing. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's called an opinion. I have the
Wrong opinion.
A wrong opinion. Roll credits. And yeah, I'm allowed to have this opinion because I live in a country where freedom.
You live in a society.
We live in a society. I don't even know where that came from.
Good question.
But yeah. And She's as Beautiful as a Foot is absolutely terrible. Worst song on the album. So I am going to put it in the B section.
Oh, fair. That's where I already had it so people could see what album we were talking about.
Okay.
All right, so I'll talk about my opinion on it. Now, this is not one of my favorite Blue Oyster Cult albums, but it is a fantastic debut. You have standout tracks like Transmaniacon MC. You got, Then Came the Last Days of May, which is a classic, played to this day.
I would say one of the better songs, maybe one of the top 10 songs, in my opinion, in Blue Oyster Cult's career.
I agree with that. Stairway to the Stars, another standout. Before the Kiss of Redcap, great song. I don't agree with him that it's not memorable. I actually really enjoyed it on my first listen, and to this day, I think it is one of the standouts.
Look, it's a fan favorite for a reason, I'm sure. I just can't really get into it, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, She's as Beautiful as a Foot is a song that's about as beautiful and well made as a foot.
Yeah. Depending on who you ask, it's that could be subjective.
That's true. Cities on Flame with Rock and Roll, classic. Workshop of the Telescopes is my favorite song on the album outside of Then Came the Last Days of May, which is obviously my favorite. Yeah. I think Workshop of the Telescopes is just amazing and one of the best deep cuts in the band's discography. So overall, this is a really, really great record, but it does suffer from a few things. Number one, it suffers from some subpar songs in the form of we already talked about She's as Beautiful as a Foot, Screams, I'm on the Land, but I Ain't No Sheep. That song kind of sucks. Redeemed.
Yeah, I guess I understand what they were trying to do with it, but
and it also kind of suffers greatly from what I am now coining as first time syndrome. Because we talk about this a lot on these videos. This is the first album, and the band doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. There's country rock here. There's,
folk music in terms of
there's
blues
blues rock. There's, metal kind of in some songs. Yeah. I mean, it's just a weird album. It's something he'll bring up later is that a few albums sound schizophrenic. I'd say this is the biggest example of that in their discography. It has no idea what it wants to be. But when it works, it really, really works. The last thing I'm going to say about it is I don't agree that the vocals are bad. I think they're actually, especially Albert Bouchard's, are a huge standout on this one. Obviously, Buck Dharma was always my favorite vocalist, but he only sings like one song on this album.
No, he sang a couple. He sang like "Stairway to the Stars."
That was Bloom.
Yeah, I said Eric Bloom.
I meant Buck Dharma.
Oh, Buck Dharma. Oh, okay.
He only sung "Then Came the Last Days of May" and "Before the Kiss of Red Cat."
Oh, yeah, that was probably. I don't really think that Blue Oyster Cult ever had that great of vocals. I'm just gonna state that right here and now. I think that vocals are serviceable for what it is, but literally anybody else could have done that job better.
So my opinion on Blue Oyster Cult vocals is that they are one of the highlights of the band. They're phenomenal. They are absolutely unique as well, to the point where you have bands like Ghost that come out and sound absolutely nothing like Blue Oyster Cult, but because the vocals are really clean and nice, immediately people call it a Blue Oyster Cult.
Okay, yeah, but that's like, okay,
because
no,
it
but
sounds
like
even a little bit like it.
that vocal style is only on one album, though.
The vocal style is on all of their albums.
It's most prominent on Agents of Fortune. Agents of Fortune is the most ghost-sounding Blue Oyster Cult record.
I disagree to that point, but I think that all the albums pretty much have similar vocal styles. Maybe
Not
like
really.
a little bit more bluesy sometimes, maybe a little bit more
like,
melodic, but like overall it's the same style.
Especially when you get into the Black and White albums, they sound completely different from Agents of Fortune.
I mean, yeah, they sound different, but the vocals are pretty similar. Like almost,
I don't know.
I don't know. Like, Buck Dharma especially never really sounded different throughout their entire discography. He always sang the exact same way. Eric Bloom, you could argue, had a lot more dirt in his early vocals, like in the Black and White albums.
He did get a lot better as time went on, and we'll get to that. But just to wrap it up, what are your thoughts?
So, due to everything that I talked about, I can't put it in A tier. I can't put it in S tier. It has to be B tier for me. Not that it's an album that I would 100% come back to, and I have come back to on multiple occasions.
Me too.
But it isn't top shelf.
Well.
It's not top shelf. Blue Oyster Cult. Great album though. Okay, so let's get on to the next one, which is an amazing album, Tyranny and Mutation.
All right, so that is an easy S album for me. It is actually the second best in my opinion. A lot harder rocking. You have songs like Hot Rails to Hell, OD'd on Life Itself is pretty good, despite ripping off the riff from Bang a Gong by T-Rex. Hot Rails to Hell is the best song in my opinion. 7 Streaming Jizz Thrusters isn't far behind. Wings Weighted Down has amazing guitar and atmosphere. Teen Archer is a good old style blues rock song. And overall, I would say it's a pretty much perfect album. The Red and the Black is one I didn't even cover in my notes. How could I have not? That's on this album, right? I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah. Oh, I did cover it. It said Red and the Black is a decent opener. It gets a bit... Okay, I wrote that in my notes. I don't stand by that.
It's a really good song.
Yeah, especially when they play it live. It's an amazing live song.
Yeah, because it's got such a high energy to it.
The transitions are a really nice touch.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah, so overall, yeah, definitely S rank.
So I would have to concede to that. It is definitely an S rank album for me. I love it from front to back. It's completely killer. You have The Red and the Black, which is a fantastic song, great opener, very high energy, gets you pumped up. OD'd on Life Itself, which is one of my favorite songs by the band. Hot Rails to Hell, which is borderline thrash metal. And let me just say, OD'd on Life Itself is borderline surf rock. 7 Screaming Dizzbusters is kind of proggy. That's
not how you say it.
7 Screaming Jizz Thrusters is so much superior. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Ice Ice Baby Dog is the worst song on the album for me,
Yeah.
but it's still really, really good.
I think that's the only one
For
I
what
didn't
it
even
is.
talk. That's like one of the few ones I didn't even cover in my notes. It was that kind of
It's
eh.
it's It's the only song on the album I'd say is not like amazing. It's still
Yeah.
good though.
Yeah.
Wings Wetted Down, I agree with everything he said about that and Teen Archer. He didn't mention Quicklime Girl, which is probably my
Oh,
favorite song on the
how did
second
I
half of
not
the
mention
album.
that? I totally forgot that was on this album. Yeah, that's a
It's
good
such a
song.
good song. Such a good song.
Brookline Girl.
Yeah, so overall, this album is absolutely S tier for me. And for any of you guys who want to get into like kind of the more rough sound of the band, more the heavy aspect of them than like the pop stuff, this is the album for you.
I'm going to disagree. So, did you want to move on to the next album?
Well, why do you disagree first?
Did you want to move on to the next album?
Okay, fine, let's do it.
Yeah. No, if you want to get into the heavier, like, rock your socks off Blue Oyster Cult, you want to get into my personal favorite Blue Oyster Cult album, Secret Treaties. So, Secret Treaties is amazing. I mean, you have what do you have? Career of Evil might be another one of my favorite songs. It's much better mixed than the first two albums, a lot more polished. Um, does some tracks maybe a little bit better than others, but overall, I mean, you have Dominance and Submission, Flaming Telepaths, the one song that I can't pronounce that they renamed to Blue Oyster Cult on the other album. What is it called?
Subhuman?
Oh, right. I'm an
Why
idiot.
can't you pronounce that?
I don't know. I wasn't like looking as hard. Right. So Subhuman is another great song. ME 182, I think it's called.
262.
262. That's an amazing song. It's just front to back really good. Oh my god, and I almost forgot Astronomy. Astronomy is an amazing song as well that they never actually really managed to recapture in live or in studio. And in fact, we are going to get to the studio remakes later in this video because they are quite frankly not so good. But
Not so good.
a similar thing cannot be said for Secret Treaties. I think if you want the hardest of hard rocking when it comes to Blue Oyster Cult, you are going to get this album, whether it's on Spotify, whether it's an original vinyl print, which I have downstairs, whether it's CD, whether it's brain disc, get it.
All right, so I am gonna have to agree with you. It is my favorite Blue Oyster Cult album as
Bill,
well.
he's agreeing with me.
I'm not saying that there aren't albums that are on the same level as this album. The album we just talked about, Tyranny
Yeah.
and Mutation, is just as phenomenal. For me, the reason it takes the number one spot, Astronomy. That is my favorite Blue Oyster Cult song of all time, and it is at least in my top 5 favorite songs of all time. It's a big influence on me as a person and as a musician. Other than
Yeah.
that song, you have Career of Evil, which was actually written by Patti Smith.
Are you
Because,
serious?
yes,
I knew they had a collaboration, but I didn't know.
yeah,
She sounds like the lady in the front of that one song in Agents of Fortune kind of sounds like Patti Smith, so I wonder if that's her as
I
well.
think she does guest vocals on The Revenge of Vera Gemini or whatever on
That
that
might
album.
be it, yeah. At the beginning, with
Yeah,
like that one spoken word part. Yeah.
I believe so. But yeah, so you got Career of Evil, and for those of you who don't know, like Alan Lanier and Patti Smith were married for a while, and they did
They were
eventually
married.
like
I didn't know
divorce.
that.
Yeah, they were married. But because of that, like, okay, and something about Blue Oyster Cult that a lot of you should probably know is that Blue Oyster Cult did not write their own lyrics. Often Sandy Pearlman wrote the lyrics, sci-fi authors that we'll get to wrote the lyrics. You know, Patti Smith wrote the lyrics. Richard Meltzer is another really, really huge name that wrote a lot of the lyrics for Blue Oyster Cult. Very rarely does the band write their own lyrics, which maybe you could say is a detriment, but personally, I think Blue Oyster Cult was originally founded with the intention of adapting poems written by someone else. So it keeps in line with the faith of the band, you know? Like the
Yeah.
entire idea of them, the theme of them as a group. So that's one thing I like about them. But anyway, back to the album. So you got Career of Evil, which is killer. You have
Yeah.
Subhuman, which
Yes.
frankly I can't really listen to it because I have heard the remake on Imaginos, which is just better in every single way, shape, and form.
And
It
also
makes
the
this
live
song look
versions
shit.
are and also the live versions are kind of better too,
Oh
especially
yeah,
on
on
your
your feet or
feet
on
or
your
on your
knees.
knees, which we'll get to later.
Yeah. So that's probably my least favorite song on the album, but every other song on the album is killer. Dominance and Submission was the first song I ever heard by Blue Oyster Cult that made me fucking like headbang. ME 262. KG Cretins is a deep cut a lot of people don't talk about, but I think it's pretty good. Harvester of Eyes, guys. Like, that
Oh, I
is an
forgot
amazing
about that
song.
one. Yeah.
Harvester of Eyes, that's
That's
me.
me.
It's a great song. Flaming Telepaths. I mean, that's
Amazing.
one of my favorite songs by the band, too. This album is not just the best Blue Oyster Cult album, it's a contender for one of the best albums ever made,
I would
especially one
not
of the best albums in the 70s.
I would not disagree to that point. I don't I mean I couldn't say officially that it's my favorite album of the 70s or even of all time. But it definitely deserves to be on like a top 10 or top 20 list.
For sure. I don't know if it's the best album of all time, but it definitely deserves to be at least in the top 15, in my opinion.
Yeah.
All right, so this is the album that ends the black and white era of the band. There are a few eras of the band. This one's called the black and white era, and it starts what is called the classic era of the band. Now, I did mention that the members of the band from the debut album all the way to this one have been Buck Dharma, Eric Bloom, Albert Bouchard, Joe Bouchard, Alan Lanier, and Sandy Pearlman. I forgot to mention this sooner, but when that changes, and it will change, we will talk about it. Specifically,
Yeah.
it'll change on Mirrors. So when we get to that,
So
I'll talk about that more. But
so
uh, the next album is the one that made Blue Oyster Cult huge.
are we going to do On Your Feet or On Your Knees first? Because I think that came out
Oh
first,
yeah,
right?
I forgot that came out before Agents of Fortune.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do On Your Feet or On Your Knees first.
On your feet or on your knees. It's Blue Oyster Cult.
I'm pretty good friends with Lucifer, you know.
Yeah.
I'm on a
We're
first
on
name
a first name basis. Blue, love a boy.
Yeah, gotta love him. Fucking,
Yeah.
they're so fucking funny. I love these guys. So, okay, I guess I'll talk about it first just because I've heard it way more times than you. This is one of
Yeah.
my favorite live albums of all time. And you guys should know I don't really like live albums because to me, most of the time, they are far worse live than they are in the studio. That's the first reason I don't like live albums. The second reason is it's a poor man's way of seeing a band live. It's
My
the only
argument to
reason you
that,
would.
though.
Well, let me finish.
Yeah.
So the only reason you would listen to most live albums, in my opinion, is to go and pretend that you're seeing them live because you can't see them live anymore, or you're just too broke to go see them live. Those are the two reasons I don't like live albums generally. This album, however, contends with both of those points because one, it contains the definitive version of every single song on it. Way better than the studio, way better than the other albums' versions of these songs. And two, I have seen Blue Oyster Cult live. So fuck you. All right, and what were you going to say?
I was going to say my argument to that is like, even if you can't see them live anymore, it's like, I was born in 1998. Tyler, I think you were born in the same year.
99.
Okay. Well, regardless, we're too young to have seen Blue Oyster Cult in their prime. You might have
Yeah.
seen Blue Oyster Cult, but you saw a gimped old geezer version of Blue Oyster Cult. Listening to a live album from any band I would say is a good way to, and it's a good way to kind of memorialize them. You know, like yeah, Bob Dylan is still technically touring, but he sucks.
But he sucks. He's always sucked.
He sucks more now, trust me. I saw.
Yeah. So this album, you have Subhuman, which is way better than the original version. You have Harvester of
Yeah.
Eyes, Hot Rails to Hell, The Red and the Black, Seven Screaming Disbusters, and then you have the live improv session Bucks Boogie.
Yeah.
Then came The Last Days of May, Cities on Flame, Emmy 262, Before the Kiss of Red Cap, and then you have two amazing covers, Maserati GT and Born to Be Fucking Wild.
I would even go as far as to say that the Born to Be Wild live cover, and I know this might be sacrilege, is kind of better than the original Steppenwolf version.
I agree, frankly.
I'm not saying that the Steppenwolf version is bad. I'm just saying listen to this version, and I think you might be able to kind of see my point.
So you're probably asking yourself right about now, well, they didn't cover live albums with any of their other Wrong Opinion videos. Why are they doing it with this one? Let me tell you why. Because Blue Oyster Cult is a live band that recorded studio albums, not a studio band that occasionally tours. They were first and foremost, and always have been, a band that just is set for live shows. They're always touring. Like, even though they didn't release an album for like 20 years, they have been touring constantly, practically the entire time, because that's just how they are. That's what they do. When you listen to a master live like Blue Oyster Cult, you get to hear all kinds of amazing improv sessions, and you get to hear you listen to a studio version and it's the same every single time, right? But you listen to a live album and you compare it to a different live album, the band plays it differently every single fucking time. Buck Dharma does a different solo. He does a different jam session. He even does different phrasing on the riffs that everyone knows from these songs. Sometimes he'll add in pinch harmonics. Sometimes he'll add in little fills. That's one of the best parts about listening to this band live. And that's why pretty much every song on here is better than the studio versions of these songs. The only thing that would make this album perfection is if you got rid of Before the Kiss of Red Cap and added Astronomy, because this was the band in the prime. And if they were ever going to capture the magic of Astronomy in the studio, it would be here. Too bad they decided to do that song, though. It's still great. Now, we're actually going to be ranking these albums separately from the studio albums. As you can see, this section here says live albums. If I'm just going to say, if I were ranking this, it would be S tier because it's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
But as it stands, this is going to be my favorite Blue Oyster Cult live album.
Yeah. Same for me too. I don't have much to add other than it's just an amazing album. I think my only problem with it is that I would have preferred a few more songs from Secret Treaties. Flaming Telepaths, Dominance and Submission, and Astronomy come to mind immediately. Also, maybe Career of Evil. But, the album's relatively long as it is, and when you have a set list that's so good, it's hard to, and keep in mind, how many albums are above? How many studio albums do we have right now? Can you tell me?
Three.
3 albums, and you already have to, pick the best out of these to pick, a double LP full of, what is best on this album.
Yeah.
There's so many ones that you could pick. That's how amazing Blue Oyster Cult is and was even around this time when they were just starting.
And I think some would argue that they never really got better. Some would argue they went downhill from this point forward. I personally would not argue that. I think that a lot of the albums they put out later are really good, but I don't think any of them reach the heights of Secret Treaties.
Okay. So let's do Agents.
Yeah, let's get into Agents of Fortune. And I kind of messed up that fucking intro to the album because we talked about On Your Feet or On Your Knees first. But this is the album that made Blue Oyster Cult big. You have to understand, Blue Oyster Cult was never, even after this album, even after their hits, Blue Oyster Cult was never a mainstream band. They were never an Aerosmith. They were never a Kiss. They weren't even ever like a Megadeth or something like that. They were always a band that was kind of cult. They had a really, really strong fan base.
Wait. I'm sorry. I need to stop you. There's something very important I have to add.
What's that?
You said cult.
I guess you could say that they might have been cult classics.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I that was very important that I had to interject before you got any further. Okay, continue.
So important. Yeah, no.
Okay, but I won't interrupt you ever again.
Yeah, okay, I totally
Not
believe
one
you.
time.
Not one time. Not ever.
Not ever.
Not ever again. No, but what was I right? So, Agents of Fortune. They have never been a commercial band, but this is the album that put them on most people's radars because of one song. Don't Fear the Reaper. Now, this is going to be controversial, okay? And I understand why some people would call me a blasphemer for saying this. Don't Fear the Reaper isn't that fucking good. I'm sorry. It's really not.
What?
It's not that fucking good, okay?
You needed to tell me this before the podcast so I could absorb that shock, like a shock absorber.
Don't Fear the Reaper is entirely one of the most unrepresentative songs of Blue Oyster Cult as a band.
Okay, yeah, but it's still like lightning in a fucking bottle.
It's a fun song. It's a nice little love
It's a
song.
fun song. It's not a love song.
Actually, it is.
It's not a love song. It's about the fear of dying, I think.
Kinda, but there's like a romantic twist to it.
Kind of.
Like the song kind of paints a picture of like a girl who's dying, but she's in love with a guy, but she's afraid to die because she's afraid of the Reaper or whatever. And the song ends.
Oh my god, that kind of makes the song better now that you add that subtext.
Yeah, it's like a Romeo and Juliet thing. Now listen, I'm not saying the song is bad. It's a classic song, but there are so many better Blue Oyster Cult songs. There's tons of them. This wouldn't even make my top 25, personally.
No. Okay, look. I'm going to have to argue with you right there. I've listened to the entire Blue Oyster Cult discography with you. I still have to say that Don't Fear the Reaper, Veteran of the Psychic Wars, and maybe The Last Days of May might be my top 3 if I had to wildly just throw some out of a hat. Now, like that's just my like noggin. Like I didn't come up with an actual list, but he did.
I did, yes, which I will give you later. But you know, like I think maybe that just comes from the fact that these albums you've only listened to them once. Meanwhile, I've heard most of them 3, 4, 5 times.
I guess
even 6 or 7 now that we've done this.
Okay,
and,
but like
to
still,
me,
how many fucking?
It's not a standout.
Yeah, but like considering all the live albums I had to listen to, how many fucking times am I gonna have to hear "Hot Rails to Hell"?
It's a really fucking good song. You should
it's a
hear
good
it a lot
song,
more.
But like,
yeah, I mean,
it's not "Don't Fear the Reaper."
Like I said, it's not a bad song. I love the song even. It's just that Blue Oyster Cult is such a good band that they've made so many amazing songs. It just doesn't even rank high for me. It's just not that amazing.
Alexa.
And
Stop.
That is kind of emblematic of my opinion of this album as a whole. It's just
We are going to fight
amazing.
on this one. We are going to fight on this one.
Yes, we are. I think this is a huge step down from their previous albums. It seems like the band wanted to take a different musical direction with this one, and it just didn't work. Say what you want about BOC, they have never made the same album twice. So I can respect that they wanted to go a different musical direction with this one, but it just doesn't work out all that great. You have This Ain't the Summer of Love, which is really good. It's not better than pretty much any song on Secret Treaties or Tyranny of Mutation, but it is pretty good. You have True Confessions, which is fucking garbage. It's written by Alan Lanier, and this is the song I mentioned earlier where he sings lead vocals. This is actually the only song where he sings lead vocals.
And there's a
And
reason for that.
yeah, because it sucks. You have Don't Fear the Reaper, which is obviously a classic. I already said this, and it's sung by Buck Dharma, who is a great singer. Again, my favorite of the band. ETI is a better song than Don't Fear the Reaper. Don't at me. And honestly, that's probably the best song on the album right there, ETI. The Revenge of Vera Gemini is really, really good. After that, Tattoo Vampire is the only good song. Sinful Love sucks. Morning Final sucks.
What?
Tenderloin sucks. Debbie Denies sucks.
Okay, I'll give you the last
Please,
one. The
whatever.
other ones are really good.
I don't like, and honestly, I don't even like This Ain't the Summer of Love all that much. So really, there are only a short few songs on this album that I really enjoy and come back to a lot. And for that reason, it's going to go below the debut album for me. But still B tier.
Okay, so I am going to give it S tier, below Tyranny.
Just give me one sec. Okay.
All right, so I'm going to give it S tier, below Tyranny and Mutilation. It's a more psychedelic mutation. Okay, well, it's a more psychedelic throughout album. Debbie Denise and True Confessions, I think, are the only real bad songs on this album. I would say it has a much more dark sound to it than really any other Blue Oyster Cult album they released before or since. I think it is amazing. Now, look, I can understand why people might not like this album, because it is a radically different change, and they never really did it again. So I think that I can understand why a lot of people might listen to something like Burning for You or Godzilla, or even like a, slightly more obscure track, like, Fire, Cities on Flame. But here's the thing. I think that this hits a really specific niche where not everybody will appreciate it, but those that do love it and worship it, and that's me. Again, it's not perfect. That's why it's below two other albums that are considerably closer to perfect. But I think that Sinful Love, obviously Don't Fear the Reaper, I hyped it up. Sinful Love is an amazing song. ETI, probably second best song on the album.
ETI is really fucking good.
It is really good.
Tattoo Vampire is really good too. I didn't hype that song off enough. That is a fucking heavy song.
Yeah, This Ain't the Summer of Love is really good.
Pretty good.
If I could pull up the song list, I could name you so many other good songs. Sinful Love Sinful Love is one of the most underrated Blue Oyster Cult songs ever. I don't understand the whole piano thing. It's really good. I
don't know. I think they just did that kind of thing better on Spectres, which we'll get to, but yeah.
Okay. So, bottom line, though, I think that Agents of Fortune is a fantastic album. I understand why some people don't like it, but I think if you really like a really dark, really atmospheric, really kind of spacey album, then Agents of Fortune is for you. I would say this, though.
I agree with that.
I can say this, though. I understand that I can understand why a bunch of people would listen to something like Don't Fear the Reaper listen to the rest of the albums, and then just listen to the rest of the songs on Agents of Fortune, rather, and then just write off Blue Oyster Cult as a result of that. It's really, I'm not going to say it's an acquired taste, because I only listened to the album once and I fell in love. But I guess maybe I would say, without sounding like, too much of a snob, I would say, like, people more exposed to music might have a better time appreciating Agents of Fortune.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good album. It just, the second half's a lot weaker, in my opinion.
I disagree with that.
Maybe I was like being
entitled to
too
your wrong opinion.
hyperbolic by saying those songs suck. I don't know if there are many Blue Oyster Cult songs that are straight up bad, but like
there's
they're
a couple.
just not
We'll
as
get
good.
to them.
They're really subpar. Yeah, there's quite a few, but all right. So let's go on to Spectres, which is going to be S tier for me. I'm just gonna say that right out of the gate. Listen, Spectres is the album that got me into this band. Okay, you have, before I get into that, let's talk about the fact that this is the last album that's going to have the original lineup fully until Imaginos, which is kind of sad. This is the end of an era for Blue Oyster Cult. This is the end of what we would call the classic era, Agents of Fortune and Spectres. And you have Godzilla, which is obviously a hit. Everyone knows Godzilla. Written by Duck Barma, sung by Eric Bloom and Buck Dharma. It's one of the few songs that they both sing on concurrently with lead vocals, which is really cool. You have the biker anthem, Golden Age of Leather. You have the fantastic Death Valley Nights. You have, Searching for Celine, which is a great song. You got Are You Ready to Rock, which is a killer track. You got Celestial the Queen, which is phenomenal. I Love the Night. Nosferatu is my favorite song on the album. That song is just so eerie. It's perfectly captures the essence of what the film Nosferatu was. And I can say that because I've seen the film like 15,000 times. I love that film. This album is a love letter to Blue Oyster Cult fans and occult rock fans. Absolutely great album, front to back. All right, let's hear why you hate it and why you're wrong.
Okay, well, I don't hate it. Let's get that out of the way, but I will put it in the C tier. Which, keep in mind, before you guys attack me, C tier is still a 7 out of 10. That is still well above average. So I actually pulled it up on my phone because I'm going to track by track it. All right. Godzilla, obviously a great song. Golden Age of Leather, it's not a motorcycle anthem. It's too schizophrenic to be a motorcycle anthem. How can you put that on? How can you put that on a motorcycle to it over something like Hellbent for Leather or Wheels of Steel by Saxon?
Because Hellbent for Leather sucks, and Wheels of Steel I've never heard.
Okay, well, you suck, and I've never heard you. But it's so... I mean, they attempted something clearly, but I don't get it. It's too just... I don't want to say goofy. They just tried too hard to do like this weird prog thing, and it didn't work. You can't have a prog motorcycle anthem. Death Valley Nights. I mean, it's an okay song, I get. Like, I'll say this. Some of these songs are kind of guilty pleasures. Now, Fireworks is another kind of guilty pleasure, but these songs are not objectively good. They actually, and I wrote this in my notes, they actually remind me a lot of what Kinks were doing around this time, which the Kinks do well. I don't really want to hear the Kinks in my Blue Oyster Cult, even if it is a relatively good Kinks impression. Are You Ready to Rock? Yeah, it's a great song, but it was unbelievably better live to a point where the studio version honestly kind of sucks. Celestial the Queen is a really good song. Nosferatu is a good song. Going Through the Motions is okay. Really, all in all, I would say that it's a passable album. Well, no, it's beyond passable. It's good. But you can't expect the traditional Blue Oyster Cult out of this. You have to kind of go into it expecting something different. And that's the same thing with Agents of Fortune. But whereas I think I personally like the psychedelic sound of Agents of Fortune, I'm kind of mixed on the whole new wave pop sound of Spectres. And I think even if I wasn't, some songs definitely work better than others.
All right. I think the biggest thing I disagree with you on here is that uh, I just think the songs are objectively great. Like, you can say what you want about whether or not you like it or not, like, whatever, but oh, come on. Like, the writing is so good. The lyrics are great. You have great compositions, top-notch performances from the band. Like, what else would you want?
Hold on. Now, here's another thing, too. Okay. We are going to get to Mirrors at some point. But everybody complains about Mirrors for being a sellout album. And to be fair, it is. Why don't people complain about Spectres for the same reason? Because it clearly was. It was clearly trying to, because new wave was trendy around this time. I think it came out in 1977, 78, something like that. Actually, I have it pulled up on Spotify, so I can.
I mean, I wouldn't
kind of
call
quick
this a
check.
new wave album. That's the other thing I would say.
1977.
So this doesn't sound like new wave at all.
It sounds like rock. It sounds sort of like pop rock from around this time. It sounds like the Kinks. So yeah, maybe not a new wave album. I guess I could walk that back a bit, but it definitely has a lot of new wave elements in it. And I think it was really kind of their first attempt at selling out. And to be fair, it worked a lot better than Mirrors, because obviously you have genuinely good songs like Godzilla, which not only is a fan favorite, but is played on classic rock to this day. It's played on the classic rock radio stations to this day. But I don't know. I'm just really kind of mixed on the album. And I even wrote a note to myself to come back to the album before the list. I listened to it today, and I'm still extremely mixed. I maybe have a slightly better appreciation for it than I once did, but it's really kind of goofy, I think.
You know, I guess I should say, because I don't think I said this before, this was the album that got me into the band, but I didn't love it on a first listen. I didn't love it on a first listen. Like, it took me 3-4 times listening through this album to start to enjoy it. And I always kind of just said that was because I wasn't really into classic rock at the time. And to some extent, I'm still not, but it was a lot worse back then. I mean, I didn't even listen to Black Sabbath. Anyway,
until I converted him.
You know, like, it took me a while to get into this album. So maybe it's just what you were saying about Agents of Fortune. It's an acquired taste. Maybe it's one of those things that you just have to come back to a lot to learn to appreciate.
I can see that. But again, this is one of those albums in a similar way to Agents of Fortune, where people listen to the hit off of the album, Godzilla, and then the rest of the album sounds nothing like it.
Yeah, that I'll agree with. Godzilla, I wouldn't say it sounds out of place like you do. It's a really good opener. I just think that the rest of the album has a pretty different sound from it.
It does, and I would totally understand people writing off the band as a result of having this kind of, I basically think it just suffers from multiple personality disorder. Does it want to be kind of pop? Does it want to be new wave? Does it want to sort of be Agents of Fortune again? Does it want to be a hard rocking album like the Black and White albums? it's just really kind of mixed and muddled up is another one of the flaws. Again, I'm not saying this album is necessarily bad. I just think that it doesn't deserve the hype that a lot of people give it.
Yeah.
It's not one of the best albums in their discography.
All right, let's move on to Some Enchanted Evening. Now, just something I'm reading real quickly. I said that Spectres is the end of the classic era of the band. That is actually incorrect. Fire of an Unknown Origin is the last classic era album. So sorry about that. Mistake on my part. I don't know why I wrote that in the notes. Anyway, so let's get on to, what was it, Some Enchanted Evening? This one right here. Listen, this is a really fucking good live album, but I don't really have a lot to say that I haven't already said about On Your Feet or On Your Knees, because this album is so fucking short. It's only 30 minutes long.
38, I
36
think,
minutes
something
long.
like that.
It has Are You Ready to Rock, which is way better. It has ETI, which is great. It has Astronomy, which is, it's pretty good. It's all right. It's not as good as the original.
I think
It
it's the
has,
closest thing they could have ever gotten to the original.
I pretty
It's the
much agree with
best.
that.
It's the best version on any live album.
I think Long Day's Night is better, but they fucked up the outro, and that pissed me off.
No.
Anyway, so Kick Out the Jams, really fucking good cover. I really enjoyed it. It was really nice. Godzilla always sounds amazing live. Don't Fear the Reaper kind of sucks on this album, and I'm not really sure why.
Really?
This is the one that I was like, meh.
I thought it was like a lot better than it could have been.
And the album closes with We Gotta Get Out of This Place, which is an Animals cover, which is kind of cool. Now
it's a fairly decent cover.
Yeah, it's a good cover, but this album just doesn't have a lot of Blue Oyster Cult material. There shouldn't have been 2 covers when there's only 7 songs.
Yeah.
So that means like what, 5 out of 7? What is that percentage wise?
I don't know. You're the math whiz.
70% of this album Blue Oyster Cult material. Like, that's just pathetic. That's pathetic. So for that reason, I can't put it any higher than last place.
Yeah, same here. It's not that it's a bad album. It's just kind of short. So as a result, I think it is a little bit weaker. And I agree with you. I don't really have much to say that you didn't say already, other than I think Astronomy might be a little bit better than you're giving it credit for.
All right. So now we're on to the album that like a lot of the fan base hates. But one thing that I find interesting about Blue Oyster Cult that you can't really say about most bands is that they don't have a single album that everyone hates. I mean, even Club Ninja, which is basically universally agreed upon as the worst album, has its vast amount of fans who love it. You can't say that for Metallica. Everyone fucking hates Saint Anger. I haven't heard one person say they love Saint Anger. Can't say that about Rush. Everyone hates Hold Your Fire. I've heard like maybe one person say they really like Hold Your Fire. Everyone hates for Test for Echo. You can't say that about pretty much any band, but Blue Oyster Cult, for some reason, that is true. And this album is one of the most controversial albums as far as that's concerned, because there's people like me that don't really like it, and I think the same is true of Logan, if I recall. But then you have like this entire huge section of the fan base that worships the ground it walks on and thinks it's the best thing the band has ever made. Now, before I get into why I think that is a crock of shit, let's talk about the fact that Sandy Pearlman is not on this album anymore. We now have Tom Werman, who is known for producing Cheap Trick, Motley Crue, and Poison. I mean, you can tell just by the choice of producer. The band was trying to break into the mainstream. And that's what this album is. Logan already said it. It's a sellout album. The entire point of this album was to become commercially successful. And it failed miserably because Blue Oyster Cult is not a commercial band, nor should they try to be. This is a bunch of boring, forgettable power pop. That's what it is. And you know what? It's one of the better albums for power pop. I guess, but the fact remains that this is the only album in the entire discography of Blue Oyster Cult that I don't think I would ever come back to unless I was like really convinced it would change my mind. I would buy it on like vinyl or CD or something like that, but only because of the three songs that are really, really good. The Vigil, Sun Jester, which I think it's called The Great Sun Jester, and Doctor Music. Oh, and I Am the Storm is pretty good too, right? I think that one was really good too.
Yeah.
There are aspects of this album that are really good. You're Not the One I Was Looking For is a song that doesn't entirely work, but it has elements of a song that could have worked. And that's something I'll say about this whole album. Pretty much every song is ruined by like one or two decisions the band made musically. And if they had just not made those decisions, then the album would have been 10 times better. For instance, why the hell did they add those stupid fucking like gospel elements in Doctor Music? Call me Doctor Music. Call me Doctor. Fuck you.
No.
That's bullshit. You should have just had BOC sing that.
I can actually tell you exactly why they did that. Because Kiss did it with Calling Dr. Love.
I don't care. It sucks. It ruins the song for me on this album. The song is way better live. And they don't do the stupid fucking gospel chorus. They just have the backup singers do backup. And it sounds way fucking better because that is what Blue Oyster Cult was always known for. You know, The Great Sun Jester was the first song that was written by Michael Moorcock, which was who was a sci-fi author who there's actually kind of a funny story behind this. So Eric Bloom was like a huge fan of Michael Moorcock, and he sent like a fan letter to Michael Moorcock, and Michael Moorcock was like, oh, you know, I love Blue Oyster Cult. And so they kind of just decided to collab based on fan letters, which is kind of funny. The only sad thing is, why did it have to be on this album? Why couldn't this have happened during the Spectres sessions? Do you understand how much better that album would have been if a Michael Moorcock song was on it? Get rid of whatever the one I didn't like was, Fireworks. Get rid of that one. Replace it with The Great Sun
You could
Jester.
get rid of Fireworks. What is it? City into night. What is it?
I don't know. There's definitely a song in there you could have replaced with Michael Moorcock, and the fact that they didn't is sad.
Searching for Saline, Death Valley Nights,
like
Fireworks, Going Through the Motions, I Love the Night.
Oh, you could have gotten rid of that one. Going Through the Motions is probably the worst song on the album. Anyway, point is, it's wasted on this album because the rest of it is just... In Thee is the worst Blue Oyster Cult song in their entire disc. It's so bad. It's so fucking bad. And it's not even saved in the live settings because I heard like a bonus track of In Thee and it was just as bad, even with all the improv and shit that they do. This album just doesn't work. And for that reason, I give it a C. The only reason it's not a D is because it has the Vigil, Great Sun Jester, and I Am the Storm on it.
Yeah.
Doctor Music is a good song. It's just ruined by the choral thing.
Yeah. So I actually put it as a D on my notes. I looked over the notes and I made the last minute decision. I want to make it a C as well, but below Spectres. So I agree with him, but I have one last thing to add. A mirror is a negative space with a frame. That is all.
That is all.
Your
face is a negative space with a frame, you fucking twat.
No, but did you say In Theo was the worst song on the album?
In Thee, yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to take it a step further. It's the worst song BOC has ever done.
I said that too. It's the worst song in their entire discography.
Oh,
it's so fucking bad.
It is so bad. It is so bad. And Mirrors is not much better. The Vigil is amazing. I Am the Storm. The Great Sun Jester.
Yeah, I really can't stress how much Vigil fucking rocks. It is my second favorite BOC song. So fucking good.
And The Great Sun Jester is an amazing song too. Like,
Yeah,
I loved all the collaborations with Michael Moorcock, including Psychic Wars, which I just
we'll
love
get to
Psychic
that.
Wars so much.
That's such a good
But
song.
it really is. But I gave it a D at the last minute, literally as he was going on his monologue. I decided to give it a C. And I don't really have much more to add other than it's not good, but it has a couple saving graces from making it terrible.
All right. So let's go on to one of the best albums Blue Oyster Cult ever made, Cultosaurus Erectus. Guys, this fucking album is sex. You know, I love the other Blue Oyster Cult albums, but there's just something about this album that always keeps me coming back. No, it's not my top spot, but it was for a long time until I eventually decided Secret Treaties wins because of astronomy. This is my second favorite Blue Oyster Cult album. Let's dig into why. So, first of all, we just basically said fuck you to Tom Wehrman and got rid of him because he sucks. And instead, we got Martin Birch, who you know from Deep Purple, Rainbow, Black Sabbath. Good producer. This album is just so fucking good from front to back. You know, the mix is great. It perfectly, perfectly complements the music. You have Black Blade, which is a classic written by Michael Moorcock. Probably my favorite of the three Michael Moorcock collaborations. I know Veteran of the Psychic Wars is really fucking good, but I really love Black Blade, especially that middle part where it gets super fucking eerie and oh, it's so good. Monsters, great song. Divine Wind, that's one of the bluesiest songs the band has ever written, and it's fucking great. Deadline, it's all right. The Marshall Plan is fantastic. You know, one thing that was pointed out to me is that the Marshall Plan is basically like a soft biography of the band because they always kind of felt like they climbed their way to the top by doing live shows and stuff like that, and that's pretty much true. And that's kind of what happens in the story of the song. And they even throw in some Easter eggs in there. Like the beginning of the song has like flaming telepaths.
Isn't there a part in that
Riff from
song that
that.
has like the riff from Smoke on the Water?
Yep, there's a part like around the middle that does Smoke on the Water. Really fucking good song. Hungry Boys. I know some people don't like that song. I kind of have a soft spot for it. It's got a cool like call and response thing happening in
Yeah,
the
I didn't really like
verses.
it.
Fallen Angel is really fucking good. Lips in the Hills is one of my favorite Blue Oyster Cult songs. It's so fucking dark and just amazing. Unknown Tongue reminds me of The Exorcist. It's fucking great too. This album is just front to back amazing. You need to check this out if you like any other Blue Oyster Cult album.
All right, so I also gave it an S tier, slightly lower than he did. I am putting it in between Tyranny and Agents of Fortune. But guys, what he's saying is true. This is an amazing album. Deadline kind of sucks, mainly for the reason that it's really 70s AM sounding, but it's
Yeah,
worse since it came out in 1980.
yeah. That's a
Um,
little weirder song for them.
yeah, Monster has a lot of really nice jazz breakdowns, which is really kind of cool. It's really experimental all album around. Hungry Boys is kind of all right. I didn't really care about it. But the thing about it, I think, is the most interesting thing. I think this proves that Blue Oyster Cult is not only a great band, they are visionaries. The Marshall Plan, to me, invented the 1980s. Because, like, what was, like, the plot of, like, half of these MTV metal videos? Some poor, scrawny kid with some terrible parents in a crappy neighborhood always wanted to be a rock star, and he tried really hard, and now he's a rock sensation. Oh yeah. Like that's basically the plot of the Marshall Plan, and that's basically the plot of every MTV video following it. I think that like a lot of these types of like 80s cool movies and music videos should owe royalties to Blue Oyster Cult for the Marshall Plan. My only other thing that I kind of disagree with Tyler is that I think the mix is kind of really thin. And it's another issue I have with Fire of Unknown Origins. It's really thin. I think maybe just tweak it a little bit and add some more bass. Like honestly, it's so good. It's good enough that you could probably even just fix it on a remaster. But I think just the mix could have been tweaked a bit. But really, that's a minor nitpick. The album is fantastic.
All right, so that brings us to Fire of Unknown Origin, which, as I said before, marks the end of the classic era for the band. And the main reason for this is the last album to feature all original members of the band: Buck Dharma, Eric Bloom, Albert Bouchard, Joe Bouchard, and Alan Lanier. Yeah, Sandy Pearlman is generally considered like the unsung sixth member of the band, but he's a producer, so he doesn't count. Fuck you. This album is really, really, really... what's the word I'm looking for? It's not controversial, but there are a lot of people who think it sucks. And the main reason for that is the second half of the album. Specifically, Vengeance, After Dark, Joan Crawford, and Don't Turn Your Back. That second half of the album is what makes or breaks this album for some people. Because I think we can all agree the first half is amazing. You have Fire of Unknown Origin, Burnin' For You, Veteran of the Psychic Wars, Heavy Metal, Black and Silver, Soul Survivor. I mean, those are all killer songs. Soul Survivor is probably the worst, and I'd still say it's a 9 out of 10 song. It's really fucking good. But the second half, there's some people say Joan Crawford's the worst song they ever made. Vengeance is complete garbage. And I can understand that because it sounds nothing like the first half. It's cheesy, like even more so than like Cultosaurus or Spectres. It's cheesy, like to a fault almost. Now, I should say my stance is that the album makes S tier personally because I like all of those songs. I like Joan Crawford. I like Vengeance. I like Don't Turn Your Back. I like After Dark. I like the whole album. I think every song is good. But I can understand that is a personal thing, and a lot of people disagree with me on that. So I definitely want to add the caveat that I understand the second half is probably objectively bad. I just really like it. And so for that reason, it's in S tier for me.
You know, Tyler, I gotta say, I think your opinion is absolutely terrible. I really disagree with your placement on the list. I think it should be the second best album of all time. of Blue Oyster Cult, anyway. I mean, Veteran of the Psychic Wars. It used to be my favorite. Yeah, so Veteran of the Psychic Wars. Amazing. Amazing. And I don't think you really understand how amazing it is unless you've seen Heavy Metal. Guys, that movie is terrible. But it is so fucking good.
It has Mob Rules. It has Veteran of the Psych. I mean, what else do you want?
Open Arms by Journey, people. Come on.
Oh, fuck Journey.
No, it has Devo. It has Nazareth. It has...
Oh, it has Devo? Now I'm never watching it.
Oh, come on. Devo is classic. If you don't like Devo, then you just hate music.
I hate music then.
Okay, well then call me Dr. Music, because I'm going to give you a cure.
Call the doctor!
No, so when we get to the second side, I don't get why don't people like Vengeance, especially the second half of that song when it gets like really fucking insane and like really fucking heavy. I would say that's the second best song on the album. Joan Crawford is really good, but I'm kind of like morally wrestling with that one. Is that even like good taste? Like just like making light of somebody who was writing about their mother like physically abusing her? Like I don't know, that seems kind of poor taste. It's a really good song objectively, but just I don't know, they might have gone a bit too far on it. But all the other songs are fantastic, so it hardly matters. Burning for You is the obvious classic that they play on live shows even to this day. Title track is amazing. Heavy Metal is amazing. Soul Survivor, front to back, this album is fantastic. Again, I'm not a huge fan of the mix, but minor nitpick. It is the second best album, and the only reason it's not first is because Secret Treaties is just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't understand why people hate the second half, but I think like it's a popular enough opinion that maybe I'm just missing something.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people in this fucking fan base that say like the second half of this album ruins it.
My my only guess as to that might be like Joan Crawford, just because it like morally might not be a good inclusion to have written it and put it on
Maybe.
the record. Like that's
I
like
don't
the
know.
only thing I can really say about like why somebody like Joan Crawford I can understand. I kind of like it because it's sort of just goofy, and I'm not glorifying the shit that Joan Crawford did to her daughter. I don't really care about that, but also it kind of sounds like they were, and I can understand why people might have a moral objection to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a weird album that people have huge
Yeah.
disagreements on. But I will say that I think as much as I enjoy the second half, it has a pretty bad flow. Blue Oyster Cult albums in general
Yeah, I
flow really
agree.
well, not this one.
Yeah, like Burning for You, as good as it is, feels really out of place. Similar thing with like Fire of Unknown Origins, maybe a little bit less because it at least has like the synthesizers, and that's a
Oh, I love that song.
relatively. It has like synth is a
Five unknown origin took my baby away.
yeah,
It's a
and
fucking
like
great
at,
song.
at least like synth is kind of like an overarching theme throughout the album. But
Yeah,
yeah, I agree
I
with
don't
you that
really.
it is kind of weird flowing, but it's not on. Again, that hardly makes it unlistenable. It's on S for a reason.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so let's move on to the live album, Extraterrestrial Live. Dude, this live album is really good. You know, as much as I
Yes,
love On Your Feet or On Your Knees, it doesn't have nearly as good a set list as this album does. You know, you have Dominance and Submission. You got Cities on Flame with Rock and Roll. You have Doctor fucking Music, which is so good here. The
so
Red and the
much better
Black.
than
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
So much better. You got
There's
Joan Crawford, Burnin' for You. A really great cover of Roadhouse Blues from The Doors. Really
yeah,
good. I mean, I'd say on par with their Born to Be Wild cover. That's how good it is. Black
yeah.
Blade, which is a fantastic song to perform live. Hot Rails to Hell, Godzilla. Then you got Veteran of the Psychic Wars. And I think this is the only live album that we're covering today that has that song.
Yeah, and
And
there's kind of a
Extend It.
reason. Like I think there's kind of a reason for that. I think my opinion on doing that song live is kind of similar to your opinion on Astronomy. It's just one of those songs where they capture lightning in a bottle and they can't really recapture it.
I don't know. They like turned that into a jam session at the end, which was really fucking cool.
Yeah, but I kind of wish that it wasn't a jam session. Like I kind of wish that song would have just been left alone because it was
Yeah,
just so
maybe.
perfect the way it was.
I always had a complaint with that song. There's just not enough guitar. I mean, one of the highlights of the band is Buck Dharma, and you fucking cuffed him on that song.
I can't. Well, I mean, yeah, I can understand that, but I think it's a refreshing change of pace. Like I didn't even know that was a Blue Oyster Cult song, and it shocked the hell out of me when I found out it was. And I think it kind of adds some variety. And I honestly, if you're doing a song in that style, there shouldn't be much guitar in it.
Yeah, I guess.
It's just
And
kind of like really sci-fi futuristic-y. It's so amazing.
the album closes off with ETI and probably my least favorite live version of Don't Fear the Reaper. It's not bad. It's just, why did they
Not
play
as
that main
good.
riff so fast?
Yeah, and
Like
why
it's like
did they?
da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Like you just fucking destroyed the whole point of it. It needs to be slower, guys.
Yeah, and then like the weird synth in the middle.
Yeah, it's really weird. But overall, this album is really, 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 really good. And I'm not gonna say that it's better than On Your Feet or On Your Knees, but to some people it probably is because of the set list. The only reason it isn't for me is because On Your Feet and On Your Knees it was a stronger performance from the band overall. But for me, it will be above Some Enchanted Evening, but below On Your Feet or On Your Knees.
So I think in order to really give my opinion on this album, did you put uh did you put it somewhere for
Yeah, I did.
yours? Okay.
I did.
Well, I think in order to really give my opinion on this album, I should kind of give a little bit of behind the scenes on how the process for these tier list videos work. So basically, we listen to an album at the same time over Spotify, over Facebook Messenger, and we kind of give like our own like live opinions on it. I mean, obviously Tyler's probably listened to all of these albums 10,000 times more than I have, but he still gives his opinions. And I think the opinion that he gave pretty much sums up my feelings. If you're a fan, if you are a if you're a true Blue Oyster Cult fan or like a hardcore fan, you're going to like On Your Feet or On Your Knees because it has like a lot of the older songs and it does a lot of like really good um it does a lot of really good, how can I say this, like improv
Improv.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, my brain is like fried at this point. um but Extraterrestrials, I think, is good for these more casual fans, kind of like me. I'm not going to say like I'm a super casual fan. I've heard more than Don't Fear the Reaper. I've heard all of these albums, but I'm definitely not as big of a fan of this band as he is. So I would say it's more or less a toss-up between all your On Your Feet and On Your Knees and Extraterrestrial, but I'm still going to put Extraterrestrial behind On Your Feet and On Your Knees because, for one reason only, the Born to Be Wild cover, it's just so much better than the Roadhouse Blues cover. Not to say the Roadhouse Blues cover was bad, but I think that Born to Be Wild was considerably better. Again, arguably better than the original. Beyond that, there's a lot of like crowd hyping, audience participation. The crowd just goes nuts all over this album. A lot of really good, like, even though I said that On Your Feet and On Your Knees has a lot of improv stuff, Extraterrestrial still has it, and it's still amazing. Guys, I would say both On Your Feet and On Your Knees and Extraterrestrials would be S-ranked albums if I were ranking them in the same tier. But since I'm not, I can only say they are first and 1.5 best.
All right. So do you want to move on or do you have anything more to say about it?
It's amazing.
It's amazing. All right. So the next album.
Can we like put this off a little bit more though? Because I really hate this. I don't like this era of Blue Oyster Cult.
This is Revolution by Night, and this is the
Ugh.
first album to not feature all original members of the band. You still have Buck Dharma, Eric Bloom, Joe Bouchard, and Alan Lanier, but Albert Bouchard was actually fired during the tour for Fire of Unknown Origin and replaced with Rick Downey, who kind of sucks, in my opinion. And for some reason, they don't return to Martin Birch here for producer. They instead go to Bruce Fairbairn, who has produced bands like AC/DC, Aerosmith, Kiss, and also Yes, weirdly enough. And maybe not a bad producer, but I still feel like this album would have been a lot stronger if Martin Birch was the one who produced it. So I will say that this album has some really great stuff on it, but also you've got a lot of really schizophrenic ideas on here. Maybe not as
Yeah.
bad as the debut, but it is close. You've got synth pop in the form of Veins, jazz rock fusion in the form of Shooting Shark. You've got doom in the form of Feel the Thunder. This album has no fucking idea what it wants to be, and the flow of the album is dog shit as a result of that. There are really good tracks here. Again, Shooting Shark, Feel the Thunder, Take Me Away is great. Shadow of California is, at least top 30 Blue Oyster Cult songs. Dragon Lady is really good. But the rest of the album is arguably worse than Mirrors, because at least Mirrors knew what it was trying to be.
Yeah.
It was trying to be mainstream. This album, it feels like a transition album for the band. The band had no idea what musical direction they wanted to go in, and so they just went in all of them. You know what? I take it back. This is more schizophrenic than the debut album. Way more. They had no idea.
I
They had
agree.
no idea. And I'll end my little opinion segment here by saying I don't think it's a bad album, but it is one of the worst Blue Oyster Cult albums. And for me, this is going to be a C, but it's going to actually be above Mirrors.
Okay, I'm going to be a little bit harsher than you. I'm going to give it a D. I think that you pretty much hit it right on the nose. It could have been good, I think. They just tried too hard, and it's super schizophrenic. You have some songs like Take Me Away, Eyes on Fire, Feel the Thunder. They are standouts. But then you have songs like Veins, which are just
Ugh.
painful.
Veins is like one of the worst songs Blue Oyster Cult has ever made.
Yeah. And then they just tried to do too much. And I think they kind of tried to, I wouldn't call this a sellout album, though.
No.
That's the thing, is Mirrors, I think, was at least pretty consistently trying to sell out, apart from a couple songs. I don't really know what Revolution by Night was trying to do. It was just taking some trends, taking a few just random ideas and just throwing them into a blender like it was a debut album. But it's not a debut album. This is a band that's 7 albums in. They should have some kind of musical direction by this point. So this is just really sad.
Yeah. I still don't know if I would give it a D, though. That's really harsh. There are some really, really good songs in here. Not everything works, but what does work works well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I look at it this way. A D is still a 6 out of 10, so I still recommend it. It's still above average. I would just I just wouldn't reach for this over any other Blue Oyster Cult album. Any other Blue Oyster Cult album we have featured thus far.
All right, so did you want to move on to Club Ninja?
No, but let's do it anyway.
All right, people. This is pretty much the album that's going to get me crucified because I actually kind of like Club Ninja. All right, listen. I used to hate it like the rest of you, but when I listened to it for this tier list, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe it was the mindset I went into it with. Maybe it was the mood I was in. I enjoyed it. I would listen to this album again. I probably will listen to this album again. this is probably the only Blue Oyster Cult album I haven't heard more than once. But I gotta say, nothing offends me here. Nothing really stands out as absolutely fantastic, except maybe Shadow Warriors. That was really good. But the rest of the album, I mean, it's good, but it's not great. It's not fantastic. There's nothing here that speaks to me like top 20 Blue Oyster Cult songs or anything like that. But it's an enjoyable album, all right? It's kind of really good sometimes. So I'm going to actually put this album a lot higher than probably most people expect. I'm going to actually give it, where did I put it? Okay, here we go. I'm going to give it a C, but I'm putting it above both of these albums. That might shock some people. How do you put this above Revolution by Night? Listen, I'm telling you, it's not that bad. Listen to it objectively once more.
So I think there's a lot of songs that really are bad, and I'm going to say it's the worst.
Before you keep going, first of all, something's weird with your audio. But secondly, this album is where Alan Lanier is no longer playing on this album. This is the only album in Blue Oyster Cult's entire discography where Alan Lanier does not play. And actually, there are only 3 original members on this album. You have Buck Dharma, you have Eric Bloom, and you have Joe Bouchard. Other than that, you have Tommy Zvonchek on keyboard and Jimmy Wilcox on drums. But weirdly enough, Sandy Pearlman produced this album. Why? Don't ask me, but he did. Okay, I just wanted to mention that. So go on, what you were saying?
Hello?
What's up?
All right. So I just wanted to test since you said I was having audio problems. So this is the
sounds
worst.
Better now.
Yeah. So this is definitely the worst album they've done. It is below Revolution by Night. Again, not to say that it's terrible. The second half does pick up a little bit. Shadow Warrior is all right. Beat 'em Up is probably the best song on the album, but again, really nothing stands out on this song. Beat 'em Up could have been done by any hair metal band at the time. Like, I'm not even going to say it's painfully average because there's a lot of songs that really don't work. It's just not that good. And it's like, even the title, Club Ninja, it's such a stupid name. There's such a noticeable vocal downgrade, a really
cool
bad
album
mix.
art, though.
Yeah, I guess. But still, like, that's not going to save a sort of slightly above average album. Like, I would say it's like, yeah, basically like a 6, but like just teetering on a 6.
All right. That brings us to possibly the most painful and tragic entries in Blue Oyster Cult's discography, Imaginos. Now, I was originally planning to like go on a very long rant about this and like go intense into the history of this album, but this is a long video, so I'm going to just kind of summarize it quickly.
I thought you were going to go on a tangent. That way I could do like my whole comedy bit about me getting up, getting a glass of water, and then coming back, and you'd still be done.
It's too long of a video to do that. We'll be here for another 2 hours. Anyways, so, okay, what happened with this album? Well, we all know Albert Bouchard left a few albums ago because he was fired. Well, after that, he went on to work on solo albums. Okay, so the solo albums that he went to work on were going to be finally what Sandy Pearlman originally wanted, a musical adaptation of the soft doctrines of Imaginos. And so Sandy Pearlman agreed to produce it, and they were going to work on it together, and they were going to have all sorts of guest musicians, and like Joe Satriani laid some stuff in here. I mean, just looking at the personnel according to Wikipedia, I can tell you there's what do we have? Tommy Morangiello, Jack Rigg, Phil Grande, Tommy Zvonchek, Kenny Aronson, Tommy Price, Joey Cariso, John Rogers, Jack Segrich, Shocking You. What else? What do we got here? We got, Wait, is this even the right fucking album? Yeah, here we go. It is. Okay. Yeah, I mean, just look at all these fucking people who wrote for this album. Joe Satriani, Aldo Nova,
Holy shit,
Robbie
really?
Krieger. Yeah. Mark Biederman. Yeah, there's
I
just
gotta
so
say
many
that
fucking
Aldo
people.
Nova is one of my guilty pleasures in music.
What did he do? Oh, fantasy.
Fantasy,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah, there's just so many fucking people who featured on this album. And you want to know what the worst part of it is? It all got fucking destroyed by the label. This was supposed to be a 3-album epic, and it all basically got slashed and condensed into one album that they got Blue Oyster Cult to come in and re-record because it had to be a Blue Oyster Cult album because Albert Bouchard was not going to sell. Fuck the goddamn label for doing this because this is one of the best Blue Oyster Cult albums. And actually, for me, this is number, what did I say? 4. This is number 4 below Tyranny and Mutation. You know, it used to be my favorite album by the band. It used to be. That was before I learned the history of the album. Now that I understand the history of the album, it just pisses me off every time I listen to it because it reminds me of how fucking good those 3 albums could have been. We could have been robbed of 3 albums that could have been some of the best
We
ever
were
made.
robbed. We were robbed of those albums.
I mean, we don't know that they were going to be great, but like based on the material on this album, probably, yeah, they were going to be fantastic. And it just pisses me off that the label would do this. That said, this disgusting, butchered, mangled corpse of a record is still pretty fucking good. You know, you have I Am the One You Warned Me Of, which is great. I'd say it's right up there with Career of Evil, great. Les Invisibles, I think that's how you're supposed to say it. Les Invisibles, maybe. Really good song. In the Presence of Another World is a standout. Del Rio's song, 7777. You know, Siege and Investiture of Baron von Frankenstein's Castle at Wassaria, great song. Really long-ass title, though. Magna of Illusion, fucking Blue Oyster Cult. You know, Blue fucking Oyster Cult. That song is the one that was a reworking of Subhuman that we talked about earlier. It's fucking amazing. Imaginos, the song that ends the album. Really good too, though maybe shouldn't have ended. The only problem with this album is that it flows like shit, but that's not the fault of the fucking band. That was the label randomly putting things in orders they weren't supposed to be in. The lyrics make no fucking sense because this was supposed to be 3 fucking albums. And of course it doesn't make sense. That'd be like you fucking took the Harry Potter books and randomly put them in different chapters into one book. It would make no fucking sense. Like this album makes no fucking sense. But the music is so fucking good. The only mar on the music of the album is Astronomy, the re-recording and reworking of Astronomy, which is heavy. It's heavier than the original, but it kind of misses the entire point of the original song musically, thematically, and I kind of hate it a lot. I used to not really understand why it was all that different, but like after listening to it quite a few times, you can start to notice a lot of things that they did that was different that kind of just ruined the song, ruined the atmosphere. Yeah, and also the hey hey segments go on way too fucking long. I mean, if you look at the Genius lyrics for this song, practically half the fucking page is hey 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 hey.
Hey.
What are you, fucking Britney Spears? Write some goddamn lyrics. Okay. Like I said, I don't want this to go on for 3 hours, but that is basically my opinion of the album. It is S rank. It is the 4th best Blue Oyster Cult album, but it's so fucking tragic, and I can't even really listen to it anymore because it pisses me off so much to think about what the label did to it.
I'm going to be totally honest. I didn't even want to cover this. I didn't want to cover this because it's such a mangled up, mashed up shell of what it could have been. And I don't think that it's a really good album. I agree with him. And I would actually put it between Agents of Fortune and uh, Culturus.
Cultosaurus.
Whatever, it's not a real word.
I
I
don't
don't really.
care. I'm still erectus over that album.
It's a really good album. Again, really bad reworking of Astronomy. Didn't. I,
Oh, and also the production is shit on Imaginos. But again, that's the
yeah.
fucking label's fault.
Yeah, I thought it was just a product of like loudness wars. He's telling me it was always that bad. Again, I just really didn't want to even talk about this. I mean, all the songs are good, but I can basically never listen to this again as a result of the label just completely taking a giant shit all over what could have been absolute masterpiece of just rock and metal.
Part of me hopes that one day Albert Bouchard will like resurrect this and try to do it again, but
Yeah, I
because he
kind of
did
doubt it
just
at this
kind of
point.
like, yeah, I mean, he's probably too old at this point, but
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah,
It'd be
he's
nice.
too old to take on a project that big, I think. Oh, and again, though, like Rush put out Clockwork Angels in 2012, and that's one of the best albums of their entire career. So I don't know, anything's possible.
Yeah, so you want to just swiftly move on, or do you have anything else to say?
I mean, the one you warned me of, Del Rio's song, the Blue Oyster Cult, a lot of really good songs. Honestly, if I didn't know the context of this album, I probably might have put it as like one of my favorites, maybe below Secret Treaties and like in between that and Fire of Unknown Origins. I can't listen to this album. It's objectively amazing. I objectively love it. I can't listen to it as a result of them completely shitting the bed.
Yeah.
I can't listen to it because I feel like I'm rewarding that bad behavior.
For me, it just pisses me off to think about like the entire story every time I listen to it. It
Yeah.
doesn't bring me joy to listen to it anymore. Maybe
Yeah.
if like a song or two I'll listen
Yeah, like
to outside of the album, but I'll
yeah,
never
like I'll
really go to
listen to
listen
Del
to it.
Rio's song on its own or the one you warned me of, but I can't listen to this whole
No. All right, so let's get
album. And
off a
speaking of
depressing topic and
and
talk about cult
cult
classic.
classics.
Yeah. All right. I don't like cult classic. I think that pretty much every single song on here is worse than the original recordings. I do think that it was probably a lot of fun to record, like Logan will talk about, but it just doesn't save it for me as a listener. And I don't really have much else to say about it than I just think it's worse in every way than their previous recordings. But I will say that it's probably a good place for new fans to jump in because there are worse recordings here, but then they can go back and listen to the originals and be like, "Oh wow, this is fucking awesome." So, yeah, this is C tier for me, just above Mirrors because Mirrors is fucking not good.
Well, okay, I'm going to give it C tier as well. This is right below Spectres. There was a lot of energy put into this. It's just a fun thing to listen to. It's, I think, as fun to listen to as it probably was for them to make. ETI and uh, Flaming Teleports, I think, are actually better on this album than the originals. Summer of Love and Astronomy are considerably worse, though. But everything else is about on par and doesn't really give any good reason to listen to those versions over the originals, which are still available and still readily in print. The only other thing I would like to mention that Tyler did not mention is that this is the only studio recording of Bucks Boogie, does does give it something kind of nice about it. Um,
Yeah,
Beyond
but
that,
it still
though,
sounds worse than the live versions of it.
yeah, but it's kind of cool that they did it in the studio finally after all these years. It's just sort of like it all comes
Nod to
around
the
full
fans.
circle. Yeah. And honestly, that's what I would say about this. It's a nod to the fans. If you're a fan of this music and you've heard all the originals before, listen to this. You won't think any more or less of the band if you listen to this album. It's totally harmless. And in fact, like I said, Flaming Teleports and ETI, in my opinion, are actually better than the originals. Everything else is either worse or about on par.
All right, do you want to move on to the next album then?
Yes, as much as I really don't want to, I don't really like this album.
Heaven forbid. Okay. Why don't you like this album, you stupid,
It's
wrong, shameful fuck?
oh,
This
I
album
was
is
dreading
fucking good.
this.
This
I
album
was
is
dreading
really
this.
fucking good. All right, listen, it's not S tier, but it is A tier. Fuck you. This album is so much better than you could expect from a band that was in the position Blue Oyster Cult was. They were in a position where they were probably never going to make music again. And I think I forgot to mention this on one of the last albums, but from this point on, I'm not really going to talk about the personnel of the band because frankly, the musicians come and go so much that we would be here all day if I were listing off names. But what you should know is that the original members for the rest of the band's discography are Buck Dharma, Eric Bloom, and Alan Lanier. Though Alan Lanier shamefully passed away in 2014. Shamefully. That's not the right word.
Shamelessly.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately passed away in
Yeah.
2014. So when Blue Oyster Cult releases a new album, and they will be, there is one in the works, it will be the only album except for Club Ninja that does not have Alan Lanier on keyboard. And that fact is very sad to me that we couldn't have had another album after or before he died. But, that's life for you. I mean, you're around for 50 years. Some of your members are going to die. That's just the way it is. So about the actual fucking album, though. It's possibly the heaviest and most underrated album in Blue Oyster Cult's discography. This album has really, really great production, which is weird because, I mean, I don't know who the fuck Frontier Records are. I have never heard of these people. But either way, like, it's fucking good production, and the songs are top shelf. Blue Oyster Cult. I mean, I should specify the instrumentals are top shelf Blue Oyster Cult. The songs are also really great, but the hooks of the songs are a little lackluster throughout basically the whole album. Now, it doesn't ruin the album for me because this is a fantastic album if you like guitar. This is a great guitar album. You have possibly some of the best riffs and solos in BOC's entire discography. Harvest Moon is one of my favorite Blue Oyster Cult songs now. It immediately spoke to me. See You in Black is a great, great opener. X-Ray Eyes, fantastic. Hammer Back is like a doom metal song. Damaged is also really fucking good. This album is just it's an album people don't give enough credit, in my opinion. The only bad song here, in my opinion, oh, and by the way, Cold Gray Light of Dawn, possibly best song in the album outside of Harvest Moon. The only song on here I'd say is bad is Power Underneath Despair. What the fuck were they thinking with that song? That is terrible, terrible. And probably the only reason it's not S rank for me is that song. Goes on for 3 minutes and 30 seconds, but it is the longest 3 minutes and 30 seconds of this band's entire career. Oh, and also there's a In the Live bonus track on this album. This must be the album I was talking about earlier. So, okay, anyway, go on. Your turn. He hates this album.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to put it below cult classics in the C category.
Oh, really? I thought you were going to put
Yeah.
it in D.
Mm,
It's
Look,
worth
the
a 7
only
out of 10?
reason. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I think that. Actually, no, I'm going to put it below Mirrors as well because I forgot I moved that. Um, the only reason I'm doing that is because I think with this album, at least it's consistent, unlike the two albums below it. And I can see that there definitely is an appeal to it. I'm just not part of it. I don't really like the sound of it. I don't like the production. I don't like really anything about this record. I think it all sounds painfully average, including what was that song you like? Yeah, that one's average too. The songs, a lot of the songs technically work, but they leave a lot to be desired. And I'm just not really a fan of the sound that they did with it. Still Burning, I think, might be a standout. Everything else, I think, is just okay. I don't like this album. And honestly, this is the first of two albums that I would not get, that I would not ever pay money for. I would not pay money for this on CD. I would not pay money for this on vinyl, if there even is a vinyl print of it, which I doubt.
There is not.
Okay.
Because actually I got the record label wrong. Frontiers actually just re-released this song this album because Frontiers Records is the label that Blue Oyster Cult is currently signed to.
Okay. Well, I haven't
So
re-released it recently. It's not on Spotify.
so the original label was
I don't know.
CMC.
Okay. It's just like too kind of 90s backwash sounding. It sounds like, I don't know, it sounds, I guess, like Blue Oyster Cult, but just like if you had a computer write a Blue Oyster Cult album, this is what it would turn out. That's really all I have to say about it. I just, it's C because I think it does have merit, and it has more merit than the other two albums, but I would never listen to it again in a million years.
All right. We only have 2 albums left. One of them's a live album, and one of them is the last to-date studio album of Blue Oyster Cult. Now, Blue Oyster Cult was set to release an album this year, but like we have no idea what's going on with that because of COVID-19 going on, and so we just decided to do this.
Wait. No, you're going to get us banned. You're going to get us demonetized.
Oh, yeah, all of our $0 will go down the drain.
Yeah.
So, if Blue Oyster Cult releases an album in 2020, we will make a follow-up video and rank it somewhere. But for the time being, this is the last album that Blue Oyster Cult ever put out, and what a shameful album to end your career on, because this album is not all that great. I mean, it's not bad. It has some good songs on it. I'm not saying it doesn't, but eh. I don't know what to tell you. It's just not all that great. I'm going to put it in B tier only because of like some of the standouts on this album that are pretty good. Let's see if I can pull up the track listing real quick. One of them, Dance on Stilts, was really cool. Dance on Stilts was cool. What was the one, like The Old Gods Awaken, The Old Gods Return? That one was really good. One Step Ahead of the Devil was really good. Stone of Love, Eye of the Hurricane, those were awesome songs. So like there's some good stuff here, but I want my Blue Oyster Cult album to be a little higher quality than this, especially if it's going to be the last one that they end their career on. And for that reason, I'm actually going to put it below Club Ninja, which might piss some people off.
I thought you said you were gonna put it in B tier. Okay.
I've changed my mind. I think it deserves to be below Club Ninja just because it's just so painfully meh. It's the only album in Blue Oyster Cult's discography that it's meh. You know, like Mirrors I don't like, Classic I don't like, Revolution by Night I don't
And
like,
that's wait. I'm
Club
sorry
Ninja I
though.
do.
How
This
is
one's
this
just
worse?
meh.
How is this worse than Heaven Forbid? That album is like chocked full of meh. It's more meh than the other album.
I mean, we disagree with that
Harvest.
assessment. Like,
What is it? Harvest Moon. That song sucks.
that song is fantastic. It's one of Blue Oyster Cult's best.
It's not.
It
What the hell is
is.
it even about? It's like some love song, and then they're like taking a farm away or something weird.
I chose not to look into what the song is about because personally the sound of it and the melodies and the harmonies and things like
It
that,
goes on
it
for fucking
speaks
ever.
it speaks to me to a nostalgic level. It
Oh,
reminds
how?
me of, like, I don't know, it's just the feeling
I
of
mean,
the
I guess you
song.
like grew up with like more country shit than I did, so maybe I can
I mean,
understand
I,
that.
I don't think that any song on Harvest Moon sounds like country rock. That's probably the thing I disagree with you most
Heaven
on.
forbid. Yeah,
Yeah. What did I say?
Harvest Moon.
Oh, yeah, heaven forbid. I don't think any song on that sounds like country rock. Like, there's no twang to it. There's no.
I think it's more just the vocal style kind of sounds sort of blues country-ish, and I kind of have an objection to that style for the same reason that I, at least to some degree, have a sort of objection with modern Deep Purple.
Okay.
Like, it all kind of sounds like sort of bluesy country, and I'm not a huge blues person, as much as it might come as a shock to some people. Like, I don't really like Eric Clapton, and even the real blues artists like B.B. King, Howlin' Wolf. I'm not really a fan of them either. And this just sounds like a lazy, poor imitation of that.
So I'm kind of like talking about Curse of the Hidden Mirror. I'm kind of muffed on where I want to put it because on one hand, I find it to be very meh overall, very uninspired. But on the other, I don't know, there are some really good, like the Old God's Return is a huge standout. There isn't a single song on Club Ninja as good as that. So maybe
Yeah.
it does deserve to be in B tier above Club Ninja. All right, fine. We're keeping it in B tier for me. I'm going to put it here. Just know that it may tentatively move down here at another date.
All right. So I am going to put it in B tier as well, above Blue Oyster Cult.
What?
I think that it has some songs that work.
Is there one song on it that is even half as good as Cities on Flame or like Stairway to the Stars or
I think the only reason I think the only reason I said that, and honestly, like when I read that, I was like, no, that can't be right. But yeah, I'll just stick with the notes because I'm too tired at this point to fucking change it. I think the only reason I mainly did that is because it's considerably more consistent than Blue Oyster Cult. But Dance on Stilts is a really good song. The Old God Returns and Eye of the Hurricane, I think, are the standouts. I think some songs kind of overstay their welcome. I'm not a huge fan of it, and there's not a ton of variety. But overall, I guess like it's a better note to end on than Heaven Forbid. It's less painfully average than that album.
I think Heaven Forbid is also a bad way to end the career. You know, what I think they need to do is they need to churn out another S tier album. That's what they need to do.
Yeah. Or at least something better than a B tier album. And don't worry, guys, we will add an addendum whenever this album is released and re-upload this video. In fact, I will add the addendum here whenever it happens. All right, we can
actually, it'll be after Long Day's Night because chronologically it will have come.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, we have to do that
wrong.
Okay,
loser.
well, you're wrong. You're
You have
Tyler, and that's
the wrong opinion on this one.
you're Tyler, and that's considerably worse.
That's true. That's true. No, honestly, I'm kind of with you. It's like here we're like doing this at midnight because we're
Yeah.
smart. So I'm getting tired. I'm going to make this kind of short. Long Day's Night is the worst Blue Oyster Cult live album for me because the performances are just kind of really bad. They actually really messed up Burnin' For You a lot. Like they
Yeah,
made
they did.
multiple
And
mistakes.
Astronomy.
Yeah, and Astronomy. The set list was really good if you like deep cuts. I'm not saying it's a bad live album. Don't misconstrue that, but it is definitely the most inferior album out of these four.
Yeah. I'm going to say that it is the second worst. It mainly because of the set list. I think that the set list kind of saves it. Like you have what Astronomy was on there. Was the Red and the Black on there? I think it was.
No.
Oh, well, there were a lot
Quicklime
of good.
Girl was though.
Quicklime Girl, that was on there too.
Stairway to the
Stairway
Stars,
to the
Odie Done Live, Dance
Stars.
on Stilts.
Yeah. So I think that.
Oh, and shit, this one had Lips in the Hills too. That's a really fucking good song.
That too. But yeah, there's a lot of good songs on here. But yeah, I think it depends on whether you like quantity or quality better. I guess. I mean, like, I could understand why you would put it below Some Enchanted Nights, but I think that, um, yeah, I think A Long Day's Night is just a little bit better just for the set list alone. And because, like, there is, like, a decent amount of, like, improv. I'd say overall it's pretty decent. It kind of perks up a bit towards the end. There's not as much improv, but there is some. There are no covers on this album. This is the first live Blue Oyster Cult album to not feature a single cover. It has a good set list of deep cuts and really weak vocals and even some kind of weak guitar.
Yeah.
So, before we wrap the video up, I think we should kind of give like a 1 or 2 sentence opinion on the 3 live albums that have been released this year so far. So, NYC, the iHeartRadio NYC from 2012. Go.
It's a good live album. It's not amazing. I would put it maybe below Extraterrestrial, but above the other two.
I actually didn't listen to it. I was just at that point I was just kind of burnt out on BOC. Like, especially considering the next album was like almost 2 hours long, which was Cleveland in 2014, and this was not the order that they were released. This is the order of just like when the concerts were chronologically. I thought it was pretty good. It had some good songs. It had Career of Evil on it, which was really good. I was wondering how long it was going to take for them to start recording that one live, and it's fine.
Yeah.
It has like some decent songs, like, Don't Fear the Reaper, and overall, I would say it's like it would have been a really fun concert to go to, is all I can say. I would say I would put it in between both of these albums. Well, I haven't listened to the second one. That album I would put in between Long Night, A Long Day's Night, and Some Enchanted Evening.
I would put Cleveland in front of Some Enchanted Evening, but below iHeartRadio. And then the Agents of Fortune
Well, wait, I don't
Live.
think did you give like your opinion on the Cleveland one?
I think so. I mean, it's really good. It's really,
Okay,
really
yeah.
good.
So Agents of
Um,
Fortune.
but it's slightly worse than iHeartRadio, in my opinion. Agents of Fortune Live, I would put above Extraterrestrial personally, because I think it's just so fucking cool to
Yeah.
have a live show where you hear the whole album. I've always loved that concept. I'd say, okay, maybe not my favorite live album of all time, but at least one of my favorite live albums of all time is the Scenes from a Memory live album that Dream Theater did, where they did the entire album in one show. And that was so fucking cool. And I actually have the DVD of that show. It was awesome. And this is pretty similar to that, but for Agents of Fortune. And granted, I don't love Agents of Fortune. On my list, it's a B. It's still really fucking cool to hear that live in its entirety. So that's why it would be above Extraterrestrial.
I would say that it would be right below Extraterrestrial for me, because for that reason, and also because I think some songs, so yeah, it's a live concert, but only technically. It's a really small crowd. They don't really do any kind of improv stuff. So it's basically just the standard album front to back. That
Yeah, but
being
they played
said,
it
though,
live in one sitting.
yeah, no. But that being said, what I was getting to is I think in some cases, in fact, I think in a lot of it, it's actually better than, I think to some degree, it's actually better than the studio version because it does kind of have a harder mix to it and a different guitar tuning. So as a result, it, I think that people who are kind of in the middle of Agents of Fortune might want to turn to the new version, the 40th anniversary edition, because it's basically the exact same album but mixed a little bit better.
All right, and so those are all the new ones. And this is where we're going to put the new album when it comes out, if it comes out this year. An addendum to that, starting right now. Okay, back to the show now. So, wrapping up thoughts, look at how many S tier albums they are. Our
Yeah,
albums
ain't
may
about
be
'em.
different,
Yeah,
but we both have 6 in S tier.
yeah,
You have none in A tier, but I do have 1, and we both have a decent amount in B. I think Blue Oyster Cult has a more spotty discography than some bands because they like to go long stretches of time where they're good and then have a bad album, and then go a decent stretch of time where they're good and have a bad album or 2 bad albums, and like so on and so forth. I mean, okay, not bad. I wouldn't say any of these albums are bad, but
mhm,
at least compared to like the rest of their discography, they're bad, is what I mean. And you'll
yeah,
notice I have no albums in D tier personally. That's
yeah,
because as much as I don't like Mirrors as a Blue Oyster Cult album, I still think it's better than a shit ton of other albums that are out there. It's still a
yeah,
7 out of 10 for me.
yeah.
I would still at least say it's a good album. You
And
do have
again,
2 Ds, but like the rest of the discography is above that. So
yeah, and again, like I said, a D is still positive. This isn't like school, all right? A D is still a 6 out of 10. That's positive, I think. I think
somewhat.
anything above a 5 you can recommend.
Yeah, I guess. I'd say like 6 out of 10 albums are the ones that like maybe I wouldn't recommend, but I wouldn't like say don't listen to it. 7 out of 10 is where I'd start recommending for me.
I guess.
But like part of the problem with an album like Mirrors or Revolution by Night or Club Ninja is just that BOC has so many fucking better albums that why would
Yeah.
you ever listen to Curse of the Hidden Mirror when you can listen to Secret Treaties, Cultosaurus, Tyranny of Mutation, Spectres, Fire of Unknown Origin, Debut, Agents of Fortune? Why would you ever pick this one up over those albums? Like, unless you just heard those albums 300 billion times and need something new, why would you ever? So that's kind of my point on that. BOC is just such a fucking good band. And for those of you who are like Logan, or how Logan was, and just assume them to be like some one-hit wonder jam band that was half
Well,
decent.
no, yeah, I would.
There's so
Yeah,
much more to them than that.
I wouldn't say one hit wonder, but yeah,
Well, three-hit wonder, whatever.
yeah.
But not much of a difference. There's so much more to them than that. There's a reason that they have a status for being the quote-unquote thinking man's band, because there's more depth than meets the eye with this band. All right, what are your closing thoughts?
I don't really have any other than, yeah. I mean, just look at my list. I mean, like I said, 6 albums in S, 2 albums in B. That's still an 8 out of 10. 4 albums in C. That's still a 7 out of 10. 2 albums in D. That's still a 6 out of 10. And then 4 live albums that are actually on this tier list, 2 of which I would say are S tier.
Yeah,
So
and I mean, if we
I think that
include
kind of
Agents of
speaks.
Fortune 3.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So yeah, if we were to include Agents of Fortune, I would say yeah, that would probably be S tier as well. So, but you know, even the albums that aren't quite as good, I can at least say there are positive elements of them. Even the albums I would never listen to again, like Heaven Forbid, I think the positive elements are the instrumentals more so than anything.
Yeah.
But you know, this has been an absolutely fun list to do.
This might actually end up being longer than the Rush video, I just realized.
Well, it'll be almost
Ow.
as long. It'll be almost as long as their 15-minute cover of Godzilla on the 2020 album. Not cover, but rendition.
Be almost as long as Buck Dharma's Dizbuster.
And so real quick, we will give our partings. But first, let's just, I will read off the albums again. So we have Club Ninja, Revolution by Night, Heaven Forbid, Mirrors, Cult Classics, Spectres, Blue Oyster Cult. What is it called? Crystal Mirror or something?
Curse of the Hidden Mirror.
Curse of the Hidden Mirror, Agents of Fortune, Imaginos, Culturus, Erectus, Tyranny and Mutation, Fire of Unknown Origins, and Secret Treaties. And as far as live albums go, I'm only going to list the ones that we've actually ranked. Some Enchanted Night, A Long Day's Night, Extraterrestrials, and On Your Feet or On Your Knees.
Yeah, and for me, it's Mirrors, Cult Classic, Revolution by Night, Club Ninja, Curse of the Hidden Mirror, Agents of Fortune, Blue Oyster Cult, Heaven Forbid, Fire of Unknown Origin, Spectres, Imaginos, Tyranny and Mutation, Cultosaurus Erectus, and finally, but not least, Secret Treaties. And as far as the live albums are concerned, Long Day's Night, Some Enchanted Evening, Extraterrestrial Live, and On Your Feet or On Your Knees.
Well, the only thing I can say before we end this is that I'd love to do your daughter on a dirt road. Goodbye, everyone.